We're going after the introduction. We're going to have the session proper, which is contributing to open source beyond code. Then after that, we're going to have the Q&A session. So we have for Bevy platform, we have a section. We have a point there whereby you can click for Q&A. So you can start dropping your questions from now. So you can see where you have your messages. You have general, you have Q&A, you have DMs. So you can use the Q&A to start posting your questions. So the speaker can actually keep in touch with the questions. So you can post your questions under the Q&A session of the messages. So we can get your questions. So without wasting much time, I'd like to just give a little bit background. Google Developers Group is a Google-led community. Just like we have it in different areas, different communities. We have GDG, Papi, GDG Abuja, GDG Guax in Abuja here. So as a developer, probably should be part of one Google Developers Group. And these events, okay, I thought about this event and I saw the need for this event to happen because I've received a lot of questions from people asking, I want to contribute to open source, but I don't know how to get started. And some people have the idea, the school of thought that you need to probably have the best of coding skills to contribute to open source. For example, you want to contribute to Python, which is one of the open source platform we have, and you feel like for me to contribute to Python, that means I have to like be so bad in Python. No, it's actually more than that. You can contribute to open source in different ways, which is what Ruth is going to talk us through. So I want this session to be very interactive. If you have anything you want to probably contribute, you can drop it in the chat. If you have a question, you can use the Q&A session. So we'll get that noted. So open source, we all have used open source in different aspects, different levels of our lives as a developer. If you've used, for example, let me name one probably popular open source. Okay, if you're a Python developer and probably you've installed Python to your system, Python is open source. If you've used VS Code is open source. So many softwares are open source, and that's actually what made you as a developer. So without open source, you might probably not be here. Without open source, we won't be having this call right now. So open source is very important, and as a developer, you should always, always, always find opportunity to contribute to open source. So Ruth is going to take us through all the nitty-gritty of contributing to open source, and most importantly, the ones that are not too technical, the way that are not too technical, and not probably requiring not much skill. So without wasting much time, I'd like to invite our main speaker for today, Ruth Ikegah. Thanks for joining us. You may have the floor now.
Okay, hi everybody. Ayateji, you can hear me, right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. So I'm sorry I'm not sharing my video. I am currently in a bad position to share my video. So hi everybody, thank you for joining this talk and this session. So I'll be talking about contributing to open source beyond code contributions because mainly I usually get that response that okay, I don't think I want to contribute with code, or I think open source is just about writing code and stuff. But I'm going to be talking a lot about how you can contribute to open source without having to write code. And also I'm going to be using myself as an example, right? I'm going to be taking you through my journey with open source contribution, so I'm going to make it quite interesting. So if you do not know me, I am Ruth. My name is Ruth Ikegah. I'm currently in Port Harcourt, and I'm a backend developer, a technical writer, and I am a Github Star too. I'll throw more light on that later in the talk about what Github Stars are and what they do. Okay, so what is open source? When you say a project is open source, what do what does it mean, right? So when a project is open source or a software is open source, it means freely available, and there are permissions to their licenses that guide you to make edits, bug fixes, enhance the code, use it as your own, and do a whole lot of stuff with it. So I'm going to be quite I'm going to use a relatable example. So let's look at the Linux OS and the Windows OS now. So Linux it's an open source software, right? And then for Windows is a proprietary software. So now with Windows, you cannot see the how Windows was built. You can't if you are not working with Microsoft, or if you're not even working, even though you're working with Microsoft, if you're not working with the particular team that handles the Windows software, you won't be able to see that. You won't be able to view the code base or view any software or how this was made. You won't be able to even contribute to it. So that's a proprietary software. There are licenses that guide that this is not open, this cannot be revealed out, right? But now with Linux is a free and open source software where you can contribute, you can try to look at the code base, how Linux has evolved from time, and do a whole lot of, and Linux has like distributions, right? Those distributions, how were people able to make it? Because they saw the previous one, so they were able to make different distros, right? So that's like a clear example between what an open source project is or software and what a proprietary, in contrast with like a proprietary software. So, like I said, I would, try to be, I will try to talk about myself as an example, right? While trying to introduce you to contributing to open source beyond code. I started, so I started coding in general, like last year. So this just to tell you that a year can change a whole lot of things in your life. So I started coding. I transitioned from doing microbiology to doing tech. So I started coding last year and around March, and then in June I started contributing to open source. And how I started contributing to open source was with so WOSCA here means Women of Open Source Africa. So it's an initiative by Open Source Community Africa and She Code Africa. So basically, let's see how we can encourage women to contribute to open source, right? So, there was this launch in June. There was a launch in June, and then there was a challenge in July that is similar. If you're familiar with Hacktoberfest, Hacktoberfest is a month-long open source contribution in the month of October, where you get about I think five, how many again? Is it 5 or 3 pull requests merged, and then you get a t-shirt and some swags. But similar to the Woska challenge, then in July last year, it was like get some number of pull requests merged and contribute to open source, and then you get a prize, which then it was like a domain name. So that's what I was saying. So now this was like a tweet I made when I like did the first contribution I made, and it was using there's this repository called First Contributions on GitHub, and it's just basically adding your name to the contributors list. And when I did that, I posted it on Twitter, and it got a lot of engagement, and people were like telling me congratulations for just adding my name. It was quite funny, but though like that was like the start of me doing open source contributions with WOSCA that month of July. I had to search for so many open source projects that I can contribute to, and get a good amount of pull requests at that month to be able to win the challenge, or win the prize rather. So it's what a step by step contribution process for me was. So there's GNOME. So GNOME is a free and open source software foundation. They have there's GNOME desktop. If you use Linux, you might have come across GNOME desktop, and they have other softwares that are free and open source, right? All their softwares are free and open source. So starting with, I think I found a project. The project wasn't about code. It was the name of the project was a scalable onboarding project. So it's a project to enhance or better onboarding in the GNOME Foundation and stuff. So, and I got involved with that project, and I got involved with the meetings and started contributing, because I couldn't even contribute via code, because by the way, I was just 3 months, so I barely knew my ground with Python. Then I started learning Python then. So I barely knew my ground with Python. So even looking at anything code there was really, really scary for me, because I wasn't even using a Linux OS. I was using a Windows, so it was pretty hard. But I was able to, get involved with this organization by being part of that project, to help beginners, help people better understand how to contribute to GNOME. So that was what that project was about. Then this other organization is a service mesh organization. Now, just keep it at the back of your mind that this is somebody that is 3 months, that just started learning Python in 3 months. So it's a service mesh organization, all cloud native things. And there was little or nothing I could do with contributing when I barely knew how to write clean code. So but then I found a niche for myself here, which is I engaged in the community, did a lot of community management stuff. I tried to, set up a newcomers call to help newcomers understand. Then there were some little HTML and CSS issues which I was looking at, helping to contribute. I started looking at their documentation, started doing an overhaul to look at, okay, where can be fixed, edits, and thereabouts. And I still actively contribute to these three organizations. This other one is Chaos. So Chaos means community health analytics with in open source softwares. So it's a I joined the diversity and inclusion working group, basically creating metrics for diversity. And the world is going diverse and inclusive. So this group or this organization is about creating metrics to ensure that open source communities are taking note of diverse and inclusive metrics, are taking note of different metrics that will help better people's life, right? So these are the three main organizations I actively contribute to. I do a lot of stuff with, right? If you want to reach out to me at any point, I have my email. You can, reach out to me and we can talk better about these organizations. But this is just an example to tell you that, with my less than 1 year experience with contributing to open source, I was able to, improve processes without having to write code, right? So and all these things gave me good skills that have helped me so far. One is, I'll talk about them one by one, which is one is empathy. So with contributing to those organizations and doing a whole lot of stuff with open source, I have learned how to apply empathy in my communications, in my engagements with people, because basically it's like the diverse team. You do not know what the other person you're chatting with or you're handling this project with is going through, or their understanding process might not be the same with yours. So you have to, like, be careful when you use your words, and you have to try to put yourself in their shoes, right? You have to try to understand. So I've learned how to be like, how to apply empathy. I've also engaged with public speaking just the way I'm doing now. I basically started, my first talk was with OSI conference, State of the Source. That was in July, I think. That was in July. So that was like the first talk I gave. It was quite good, and it progressed from there. I started giving talks at different conferences, like the way I'm giving one here. So it's one skill I'm proud to have. And that thing is my technical writing skills improved, because I get to, with these organizations, I get to, like, work on technical documentation and help enhance them. So I was able to understand some stuff, learn a lot of how to document things, because mainly with these organizations, they, the first time I started contributing to them, on every meeting we document everything, like anything, like the other person is saying. There's always a meeting minutes, a Google Docs that dedicated for the minutes, where we have to document everything. I got a whole lot of understanding on how to document minutes, how to arrange stuff, and how to, then moderating, right? And that thing is moderating a conference, just the way Ayodeji is doing right now. I learned those skills while contributing to open source, because then I know I've moderated and volunteered for quite some conferences, and even there's a particular one I usually volunteer for that is paid, right? The stipend is at least quite good for just some hours. So telling you that sometimes, yes, open source, contributing to open source is free, but there are ways to make money out of contributing to open source. Also, people skills, managing people is not easy. It's not sorry, I skipped this slide. So managing people is not easy, right? I have learned how to deal with people, and talk with people, create conversations, network, and collaborate, and do like a whole lot of stuff. So these are like skills that would you would not like, without contributing to open source you wouldn't get them, but you get pretty exposed to this earlier, right? Get pretty exposed to this earlier. So one of the biggest recognitions, right, from contributing to open source thus far is I joined the Github Stars program. So Github Stars program is, as a Github star, is someone who inspires, educates, and influences people and communities. So with my engagement with these communities, and with the niche I created, like for myself, with advocating for people, sometimes I get on calls and try to help people contribute to open source and all the rest, and do a whole lot of stuff. So I got this, and this is quite great, because like I said, I think June this year should make it 1 year into me contributing to open source, and I'm still like 1 year in the whole tech journey. And it's quite amazing how much impact you can make with just a little. 1 year is not a little time, but then it's quite amazing how much impact you can make with contributing to open source. Like, I'm a big advocate for contributing to open source. So enough about me, right? Enough about my whole story. I hope you quite enjoyed the story though. But then, how do you actually contribute to open source beyond code? Yes, there's code, right? But beyond code, you could. I'll start with talking about code first. So you can start contributing to the software or to the project. You can start making good, you can start looking at, if the project is on GitHub. Mostly many open source projects are on GitHub, so you find a whole lot of them on GitHub. So if it's on GitHub, you have to like look out for good first issues to get started with. look out for like good first issues to get started with. So it helps you better understand the code base. At least those little ones, they are they will help you understand better how to and ask a lot of questions, you know. So aside code, designers can contribute to open source. So it's not just it can be graphic design, it can be UI design, it can be UX writing. There's like every space, like there's always something you can add to a project, right? There's always, even when there is no, even when you do not see this need, even when they do not see this need for this particular skill, you you push it forward to show them the need for it. Like it's recently that, you know, over like 2 years now, people have said appreciating the need for design in open source. Like before now, it was something people do not even regard, you get. But now, you know, there's open source design, there's open source design, a group that, you know, it's really really active, that you can, if you're a designer listening to me, you can like get involved with that. Then there's documentation. It must not be about code. You can edit, making, you know, typo errors, as little as typo errors. That's a contribution, because nobody wants to read a documentation rather that has like so many typos. How do you expect the person to understand? I'm sure. I think one of the best open source project documentation is Django. So if you're a Python person and you look at Django docs, it's like very clean, very good. So you could help make people's open source projects documentation clean, good, improve it, right? Then translation, you know, like I said earlier, talking about, you know, the world being diverse, you know, we need people to assess stuff in case English is not their first language. So for if you can maybe do French or Spanish or thereabout, if you and I know there are translation tools, so you don't necessarily have to even know these languages. There are translation tools, you know, to translate for, you know, other people to be able to access. So if you can do this, it's valuable in any open source project. There's project management, right? Project management is like one very key thing in, you know, building sustainable and good software. So if you have this skill set, it is valuable to any open source software or project that you want to get involved with. Then there's event organization and coordination. Just the way this event, you know, was organized, and, you know, a whole lot of things were put in place to make sure that, you know, they reach out to a speaker and they get in touch and set up everything ready. So event organization is also something. Coordinating the event, you know, it's also contributing to open source. Marketing, like this one is, yeah, I'm sure you're quite surprised. But then a software that somebody, let's say someone makes an open source software and just keep it in the dark, nobody's definitely going to use it. You have to push it forward, right? If you have this skill, if you have the skill of, you know, talking, advocating about the project, you know, just telling people, okay, there's this open source tool that's really very nice, or writing a blog post about it, or doing something that, you know, push that software forward for people to use it, it's good, it's great, you know. Then there's community management, right? You know, managing with the community, there's a whole lot to do, because managing people is something that is not really easy. Like I myself, I'm still trying to train myself to become a leader till then, but then managing people is not easy. So you can engage in community, you know, contribute a whole lot, engage in community and try to manage how, you know, processes and thereabout. Also there's public relations and, you know, outreach. You know, there's a conference I'm part of the committee, and the niche where I what I'm taking care of is, you know, doing outreach to different organizations, sending mails and a whole lot of stuff. And, you know, there's every skill set is welcome with open source contributions. You just have to, you know, decide that you want to do something for the, and you definitely see something you can do, something that it will be valuable. And one thing I want to stress on is the fact that you should always look at quality and not quantity. What I mean by this is that do not look at the amount of changes or amount of pull requests you can make to that organization or to that project, but basically look at the quality you give to that project, because at the end of the day, quality stands the test of time. All right. So try to, look at what quality you can give and bring to that project. So I'll say it again, like for the open source is not just about code. There are like so many things you can do. There are so many things you can contribute to a project. And I hope if you want to contact me anytime at Ikegah Ruth on Twitter, I'm currently on the Twitter break, so you can reach me faster by mail at ruthikegah@gmail, and I would set up any meeting you want. I will schedule time and we can talk. So thank you for listening to my talk and thank you for being here today. So I'll take questions now.
If you have questions for Roots, you can just signify, probably drop it in the chat, or use the question Q&A option of the chat. Okay. Ayodiji, you say you have a question. Do you want? Okay. Okay, we are listening, Ayodiji. You can type your question, or if you want to use an audio, you can signify that you want to use an audio. Okay, another question from Umar.
Okay, I think I saw his question. Okay, example of open source projects to get started with as a beginner. So I'm going to share my screen in a second and I'm going to show you a little trick I do on GitHub to find projects. So give me a second. Okay, you're a front-end developer. So help me confirm you do React, or so I'll just be more specific to what the search I want to do. Okay, cool. React. Okay, so my screen is visible, right?
Yeah, it's
Is
very
my screen
visible.
okay, good. So now I just clicked on the explore button. This is my GitHub. You click on the explore button. If you click, you can see the URL she's showing explore. So now what you can do a global search on GitHub with labels. So issues have there's a feature issues have that putting labels. So let's do a global search for issues that are labeled with React and they are good first issues. And let's do so label React. Um, it's an issue that it should be an issue. Don't put I'm going to put this up in the chat. It should be an issue. It should be open. It's open. It should not be assigned to anybody, so no assignee. What else? What else? Okay. Okay. So let's do this global search. So now you can see that there are like 4,000 issues that are labeled React that are open on GitHub, right? And you can also sort by the newest ones, right? You can sort by the newest ones, and you can keep adding more queries to this, like good first issue. So you get to contribute. So if you scroll down, you see a whole lot of issues here that are open, that are with React. So another thing you can also do is, if you click on explore, so let me open this in another tab. If you click on explore, you can also check out topics, and you can search for React. Oh, sorry. Why is React not popular? Not everybody does React. So you can search for topics, basically. You can search for topics. But the only issue with this is you get a whole lot of, repositories where you can, get so overwhelmed, and, but then there's another thing you can do, which is first timers only. This is a site that you can look at open source projects, right? This, like, you see, there's a site for good first issues, code triage. There are a whole lot of resources for, finding projects to contribute to. So I'm going to put this in the chat. First timers only. So this is that for first time, so you can explore that site. Then for the search query I just used. So I hope I was able to answer your question, Umar. So that's the search query. Okay.
Okay,
So
still looking out for more questions. I think Oladimiji said he has a question and he has not dropped the question yet. So still waiting for your questions. We are here to talk about open source today. So whatever question you have, open source related, you can drop it in the chat box. Okay. She answered your question already. Okay. So that means you're free to move on to the activity. Okay, so without wasting much time, if I don't know if Ruth would like to say any final things before we move to the next schedule.
okay, not really. I don't have any final words, but then it was nice talking to everyone here, and yeah, if you can reach out to me anytime, and happy to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. And this talk is actually recorded, so all those that RSVP'd will be getting the link their mailbox, so you can actually watch it again and probably share with others. So without wasting much time, let me call on. Okay, you've heard about open source probably as a beginner, as a developer, as probably intermediate or whatsoever. So the first thing you need to do is to probably identify a community. We talked about community. So I'll be inviting Abdul, is the lead for open source community Africa for Abuja chapter. So if you're in Abuja, even if you're not in Abuja, most of our events these days are virtual. So it's going to be talking about open source Africa Abuja chapter. So Abdul.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Can you hear me please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so So my name is Abdul Hashimi, and I'm a software developer, right? And I also do technical writing. So I'm able to contribute to open source through software development and also through technical writing and through open source community Africa. I'm able to contribute as a community manager, and I get to be informed as a community member as well, and I get to be informed about different open source project and all of that. So talking about what open source community Africa is all about. So open source community Africa is actually a community that was created. So if you're actually active on Twitter, you should actually know the likes of Bolaji, you should know Samson Godi, and you should know Ada. She's like one of the developer relations for the GDG communities. So if you're active on Twitter, you should know about them. So these three persons and a couple more others actually came together, so they brought about the open source community Africa idea. So what the open source community Africa is all about is bringing creative minds together to drive about the open source movement in Africa. So as Africans, we actually use a lot of tools. We use a lot of we use what other persons create. So there is really nothing coming out from Africa. Like it's even as funny as even industrially, we like import things as little as toothpick and all of that. But that's aside. So in the aspect of softwares, there is really no product or project apart from okay, like the likes of Flutterwave, which is like an African unicorn and all of that. There's really no project that is actually created by young Africans or like an African somewhere in Yaba or an African somewhere in Surulere creating something for the world to use, or an African somewhere in Pape, Gwagolada, Kuchinguru, or somewhere that is not really in the map, making something for the world to use, like putting Africa in the map and all of that. So that's what open source community Africa is like trying to change. So as a member of the open source community Africa, you are exposed to persons, creative minds like yourself, and you can always work together to create open source projects, contribute to open source project either by code, by design, or by technical writing. So we want to create open source technology that drive the future. Want to be able to like create disruptive and innovative solutions that like solutions to like current global issues, and be able to improve things. If you have actually taken a good look at it over like let's say before the pandemic to after, like to right now, you will see that a lot of companies have actually, like a lot of developers in Nigeria have actually been able to get remote jobs with companies, rivers and seas across Africa, like in Europe and Asia and all of that. So like Africa has actually become like a global market for the whole world, and everybody is just looking towards Africa because they believe we have creative and smart minds. So with open source community, with open source community with Oscar, you can actually be part of people that drive change, and you can also make impact. All those ideas persons to work together and put them into reality and all of that. So the open source community Africa is not just like a single community. There is like a lot of open source community, the Oscar communities, like chapters all over Africa. Like the one of the leads. So I'm not the only lead for Abuja actually. So just in case you see someone else somewhere, that's you see the person saying is also the lead for open source community Africa Abuja, so you don't get confused. So we have open source community Africa Yaba. We have open source community almost every single state in Nigeria. Like there's three communities in Lagos. There is in Nairobi, there is in Kenya, and there is in some other African countries. So if you are interested in joining, so some of the things that Open Source Community Africa has been able to do is like in 2019, that was before the pandemic. Yeah, that was 2019, right? We had the Open Source Festival, which was like an annual gathering, which intends to be an annual gathering, if not for the pandemic, where persons that are interested or have made contributions to open source. So with the open source festival, you could meet people like Ruth physically, you could meet people like Ada, you could meet people like Hak Sultan, you could meet people like Prosper who have made valuable contributions to open source, and you can also meet other persons who have open source ideas that they are looking for teams to work with and all of that. But unfortunately for the pandemic, we haven't had any other open source festival since the last one. So Ruth also made mention of the women in open source. So the women in open source was also an initiative of the Open Source Community Africa, although they had a partnership with She Codes Africa. So the women in open source, it was used to inspire and support women to make valuable contributions to open source, and you can see how great Ruth is. So that's like part of the things that the open source community Africa desires to do. Like they have a tagline, they say the next billion creator. So they want like the next wave of impact makers, the next wave of creators to actually come from Africa. So we don't always have to talk about Silicon Valley all the time. We should actually be able to like mention Nigeria. Like in for instance, when people are mentioning places like MIT, we should also be able to make reference to high level developers, open sourcers, technical writers, and designers that are in Yaba Tech, that are in Lagos, that are in Abuja, that are in Uyo, Enugu, and what have you. So for me not to like take so much of your time and not to talk too much, because I know I've said maybe a lot already. So if you are interested in being part of the open source community Africa, or even if there is no community in your environment, and you now decide that okay, you are interested or you are capable of leading one, so all you just basically need to go to do is visit the official website, which I'll be sharing in the chat box. So the official website is Oscar Africa. So instead of a double A, it's just OSC then Africa.org. So once you just go to the official website, so right at the header, like once the page loads, you see the next billion creators, a community of creative minds driving the open source community in Africa, and you see a button that says join us. So you can just click on the button and it will take you to the Discord channel, and you can be part of the community. You'll find sub channels in the Discord channel that are for respective cities. So if your city is available, you can join, or you can join the city nearby, and or you can also reach out to the heads like maybe Bolaji or Samson, and even start up a community in your environment. So you're interested in the whole open source thing, you're always welcome into the open source community Africa. Like we are an open hands, like we are family, and we are always anticipating every single person. Like we always want to have new persons join us, and always want to see people make valuable contributions to open source. So I think that will be all. I don't have anything else to say for now. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Ayodeji. Mr. Aya, how
Yeah,
you
thank
doing?
you very much. Thank you very much, Abdul. Yes, I'm here. So thank you, everyone. We've listened to Abdul, and I believe, okay, he didn't share the link to sign up for Abuja. I'm only seeing the general link. Okay, so
Actually, like I said, once you like, I'm sorry, this like I'm in like. So can you hear me better now?
yes, 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 I
Okay,
can.
so once you just like go to the official website and you are able to navigate to the join us, you have access to the Discord channel, and from the Discord channel you can find the Discord channel for um Oscar Abuja.
Okay,
Yeah. And I also share the link to our WhatsApp group right now.
okay,
Okay, so I just included the link to our WhatsApp group. But then joining the Discord channel is equally important, because from the Discord channel you get to find more informations that we may forget to share